Hey, sensitive subject today. What if the biggest barrier to your company's growth isn't the market? It isn't your sales team. It isn't your strategy. It's the person you're looking in the mirror at. What if it's you? Today, we're going to talk about that. One of the most common, it's also one of the most costly realities in growing businesses when the founder unknowingly becomes the ceiling, not just the growth engine for their company. Stick around. You're going to want to hear this.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Shin.
Hey, welcome back to Franchise Pitfalls and Profits. And this is the show where we get real about the mechanics of growth. How to build the right way, how to build responsibly, how to avoid the mistakes. I mean, those mistakes are very visible if you know who to talk to and you know where to look. These are mistakes that have historically quietly stalled businesses. Why should you go through them if there's people like me that can shine the light on them for you so you avoid them? We also talk here in this podcast about creating strong systems, strong structure that you can actually build on and scale in a very responsible way. So again, if you're a founder of a business, if you're the founder of a franchise concept, now you're a franchisor, or if you're someone helping businesses grow, you're the part of the sales team or the franchise development team. Today's topic might hit a little close to home because one of the most common constraints that I see in businesses isn't a lack of opportunity. I have really an abundance mentality and mindset. What I'm seeing is structure, and often that structure centers around the founder of the business. So again, if you're a founder, if you are now founder / franchisor, anybody in franchise development or sales and business development, anybody involved in scaling a business, today's topic is probably going to hit a little close to home. But bear with me because there's an awful lot here to absorb, and there's an awful lot here that you're going to be able to use to grow your business, to make the changes that you need in your business. So most founders, let me get started then. Most founders start their businesses and they're very, very capable people. They are driven, great work ethic. They care deeply about their work, the quality of the work, the clientele that they're servicing, customers. They know them very well. They understand their product or their service literally like no one else does. And in the early stages of a business, this is a huge advantage. This could be enormous to how the business starts and opens. Founder makes decision quickly. They're pretty much the business themselves with a couple of people. They solve problems personally, and they build a lot of relationships with their early clientele. And in the beginning, honestly, that is how businesses start up. That works. In fact, it's often the reason why the business survives, why it continues to go on and on year after year and beat the statistics on startup businesses. But something subtly starts to creep in. It starts with many, many companies as they start to grow. And the very things that actually helped the business get started and do well can actually quietly become the thing or things that prevents it from scaling. And scaling really, I think, is different than purely growing. So what's happened is that the founder of the company has become and is the engine. And again, that is used. There's usually a huge advantage to that. Everything flows through them. They're closing the biggest deals, even if they have a sales team. They're handling the most important, the key early relationships, the business that is providing them 20, 30, 40% sometimes of their revenue. The hardest problems, can't get solved by anybody but them. And because they're good at all of these things, the business naturally builds and it naturally grows. But growth then eventually becomes the challenge. The organization is trying to expand. The founder is hiring some extra people, but as it's expanding or attempting to expand, more decisions are being made, more less experienced people in the business. And a lot of times the business just gets more complex. So what do we do? What does the business do at that point? What I see classically is the architecture of the business, the systems, the structure of how it actually operates. That doesn't evolve as the business is trying to grow. And so, as I said in my introduction, the reality is a lot of these challenges are very, very evident if you know what to look for. And so the things that are happening in these businesses are very predictable. The founder has become the center of the universe for the business. Everything revolves around the owner. And when that happens, he or she slowly goes from being the engine for growth and actually becoming the ceiling of the company. And so what's going on here? This is really what I call the hidden nature of being a bottleneck to a company. The person that has so much stake in the business, but yet they are the ones holding everything back. They're the bottleneck. They don't feel like the problem as this is going on, as this is evolving. A lot of times they just feel, well, I just gotta work harder. I just gotta. I'm responsible. I am the owner. I just got to put in more hours, and then everything will be okay. And then a lot of times the owner just says, well, I really want to stay involved. I want to make sure everything is done right. I'm the only one who can do it right. Nobody knows the business like I do. Those feelings, those statements are not wrong, but over time, the structure just begins to show a lot of signs of strain. What was built to handle a certain capacity is now showing cracks, hairline cracks, sometimes becoming larger. Everything actually starts to slow down in the sense of internally. Decisions, again, have to suddenly go into the center, into the owner. The people aren't getting, they're being hired quickly and not trained properly. They don't feel confident in doing what they're doing. So again, it feeds this, I got to go to the boss for this. Sometimes actually opportunities start to stall. That's never a good thing. Just because the owner simply can't get to everything, and they can't be everywhere all the time. And so the potential of that kind of a business is based on the owner's capacity, based on one person's capacity. So I think there's three types of bottlenecks to look for, and that's really going to be the core of what I wanted to talk about today. One of them is what I've already alluded to. I just call it the decision bottleneck. Every meaningful decision, sometimes even not so important decisions, end up routing through the founder. The team may be very capable in actuality. Maybe you've hired good people, but they're hesitating for lack of training. They're hesitating just because this is the structure, and they just don't feel comfortable moving forward in situations until the boss validates it or confirms their decision. It just slows everything down. Now, that's I mean, maybe for another conversation, that's a sidebar thing. The owner can use some of these scenarios to validate, to build their confidence, to validate the framework that people that he's hired or she's hired or allowed to work in by saying, bring me your thoughts on what decision should be made here, and then saying, yeah, you got it. That's exactly right. So this can be a learning opportunity, but honestly, if the business is growing, they're starting to burst at the seams, so to speak, owner's probably just going to say, yeah, go do that. Or here's what I want you to do, as opposed to using it as a teaching, coaching, leadership opportunity. So instead of an organization making progress, the progress is sequential, waiting on the owner to step in and make these decisions, waiting for the owner's attention to the matters at hand. And so the founder ultimately is juggling priorities, traffic controlling. Hey, I'm working with Sam over here. Sally, leave me alone for a while. All the important decisions come into and become the bottleneck for the company. And honestly, everybody gets frustrated. There's strain across the board. Certainly the volume for the owner can tend to get overwhelming. So that is the decision bottleneck. The second one I want to talk about is called the relationship bottleneck. In many growing companies, the key relationships are totally owned by the founder. They're totally dependent on the founder. Major clients only want to talk to the founder. In particular, if you're a franchise system, you now are the founder of the brand, the concept, and you're operating as a franchisor. The franchisees, the early franchisees don't want to deal with the staff that you've added and the structure you're building. They want the founder. So strategic partners additionally rely on the founder's personal development in the company. And that ultimately is a constraint. The business can only grow as fast as the founder can maintain these relationships. And again, in franchising in particular, this is extremely common in your first dozen or so franchise partners. They feel they must talk to the owner. Thank you. You're a good ops kind of a person, but I think this is something that the founder needs to solve. I need his or her's opinion on this particular thing or challenge. The support structure just doesn't seem to scale properly when the relationships are all in the hands of the owner, who's also, as I just said, making all the decisions. It shows up in a lot of growing companies. Again, it's especially common in franchise systems, emerging brand systems, where the founder is literally trying to run the initial flagship, so to speak, store or two, learn franchising and now sell franchises themselves. And then the third thing is manage a franchise system. It's just too much to do. And that's why folks like Franchise Building Expert is in business, because we help you with those challenges. But anyway, relationship decision bottleneck, relationship bottleneck, and then the third one I want to mention is the identity bottleneck. Let me tell you what I mean by that. And honestly, the other two are critical. But this is a deeper one, and so it's a little different. Many founders have quietly believed something like, "Hey, if I step back, the business is going to be lost. If I step back, what we've started that's special is going to fall apart." And I get, again, this is we talk about, this is somebody's baby. They've started this, they've planted the seed, they've birthed it, they've nurtured it, they've watered it, they've weeded. I get it. The founder's original vision is coming to fruition. It's been the founder's personal culture and standards. I get all of that. And that's the part of the paradox, I think, here. But if the founder remains at the center of everything forever, the culture that they've actually want to continue to expand is just going to be harder, if almost impossible, to replicate. So instead of building the system that carries their vision forward, the company actually becomes so dependent on the founder's personal presence. Personal presence does not scale. So what's the cost here of these bottlenecks? Several things happen. Your teams will lose momentum because the decisions slow down. They'll actually sometimes stop working on what's most important because they're waiting on a decision from you. The other thing about teams is that sometimes your best team members that want to take ownership, they love working for you. They really, really want to do more. They want to see the vision really, really happen. But because you won't give them you will not allow them to make the decisions, you're actually holding them back, and candidly, quite probably you're going to lose some of the really, really best people because of the way you've built this structure revolving around you as the owner. Your strong leaders are just going to feel too restrained and too constrained to operate, and you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them. You're going to lose them when your company is based on you as the founder, your personal bandwidth. But I think, so there's a cost in momentum. There's a cost in losing great people. But I think what could be the most significant cost is that you never develop the structure for sustainable scale. You're going to grow, but you're not going to scale. And eventually this growth will get stymied. Eventually this growth will plateau, if you will. And not because the opportunity has disappeared, but because the architecture of your company never changed from that beginning phases, and you as the engine. That structure, those systems, that architecture has not evolved with the growth, and so the opportunities will go away. So I want to be very, very clear that yes, you're gonna hear from very simple conversations, maybe with other people. Well, you just need to learn how to delegate more. But the solution is not simply to delegate more or to learn how to delegate, although that's part of leadership. But delegation will not fix these structural, architectural problems or bottlenecks. What's required is something really different and really deeper. The founder has to begin to design systems where leadership can get extended beyond themselves, where you create the framework for your best people to know where they can operate and what decisions they are allowed to make, and where relationships will evolve beyond the owner of the company, beyond the founder. When you're doing this, your business will be able to operate without everything revolving around you, without you being the center of the universe, so to speak, for your company. Doesn't mean that you, as the founder, doesn't mean you go away. Quite frankly, the opposite. You work as a leader as opposed to an operator. You are still responsible for the overall success, but you're doing it through building a system, and you're doing it by allowing problems and relationships to be run and decisions to be run through the team that you've now developed. The focus shifts from you personally being involved in everything to allow your organizational system and the architecture of your company to operate well. And so that shift is what really allows a company to grow beyond kind of natural, simple growth and really scale beyond the limits and the bandwidth of the founder. So there's a mindset shift here that I think is very important to understand. I kind of hinted about it. Founders feel they must personally carry everything because they care so much about the business, but responsible leadership is what I'm talking about. You don't hold everything so tightly that, again, you become one of these three bottlenecks. This mindset shift is about building something that is strong enough to stand without the owner having to literally, physically be present at every decision point and literally present in every area of the business. Growth isn't simply about doing more in this scenario, in this mindset shift. It's actually about designing a structure that's built to carry more. So you're not just band-aiding, or you're not just caulking some of the cracks that you see. You really have a different mindset to build a better, stronger structure for the scale that you want to achieve. So you've got to let your organization mature, and you've got to be focusing on it being less dependent on you as the founder and the owner. So let me just kind of wrap up. If leading a growing company, if you are leading a growing company and you're starting to see, some of these hairline fractures, here's the question that I really want you to think about. Where might I unintentionally be the bottleneck in my company? Is my team, do you see that your team is literally waiting on you to make decisions before anything else can happen? Look at your key relationships. Are they solely dependent and entirely dependent on you and your personal involvement? And then the last question is, how are my systems working? How does my structure look? Is it only built to operate, kind of in that emerging startup phase, and everything is flowing through me? Or have we started to build a structure, a stronger foundation that more and more can be built on top of it. These aren't easy questions. I've talked about this in some of my other episodes about not pausing or totally stopping your growth, but just slowing down enough to really look at what's going on in your business. And that's what I'm talking about here. They're not easy questions. They're not just, you'll flip a light switch, I've got the answer. But they're really, really strong questions if you want to strategically grow instead of just kind of have this light growth that goes on. If you want to substantially grow, again, as opposed to just having this kind of light, simple growth happening. If you really want to build something that's going to sustain this growth, and that's really what I think is scaling, it's sustainable growth. If that's what you want to do, then these are the right questions before you move too quickly forward. And these are the things you want to start recognizing to build a better structure and architecture and foundation. Instead of building a 2-story building, you want to build a 10-story building. So, hey, if this episode resonates with you, please feel free to refer somebody else to it. I've always said we travel in circles of people similar to ourselves. So you probably know other business owners that are going through some of the same things you are. So please refer them to our podcast. And then the other thing simply is that if you're navigating this kind of growth that I mentioned, if you're honest with yourself and you're starting to see some of the features of these bottlenecks, stick around. That these are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about in these episodes going forward. But it's also the kinds of things that I and my team talk with folks regularly. Emerging brand franchisors, people that haven't even started their business as a franchise. Maybe you've never even thought about turning your brand into a franchise concept, or your company into a franchise brand. We're here to talk about that. Reach out to us on our website, the Contact Us page. And we just love having these conversations with people like you. So welcome back. And really, we look forward to having you join us in a future episode.